In a case documented by the CDC, a patient walked into a hospital for a routine surgical procedure. The surgery went perfectly, but days later, they developed a severe infection. The bacteria was resistant to multiple antibiotics. The patient didn't survive, not from the surgery, from an infection contracted inside the hospital. Cases like this happen 99,000 times every year in the United States alone. Hospital-acquired infections kill more Americans than car accidents and homicides combined. The estimated global cost? $28 to $45 billion annually. And we're running out of antibiotics that work. But in the ocean, there's a creature that's been swimming in bacteria-filled water for 450 million years. And they rarely get infected. In 2005, a materials scientist looked at this skin under a microscope and realized he was looking at a potential blueprint for the future of infection control. No chemicals, no antibiotics, just geometry. Sharks are among the oldest vertebrates. They survived 5 mass extinctions. For 450 million years, they've been swimming through oceans that are bacterial ecosystems. A single drop of seawater can contain hundreds of thousands to millions of bacteria. Sharks hunt, bleed, get wounded. In theory, these wounds should become infected. And yet, shark infections are remarkably rare. Why? In 2002, materials scientist Anthony Brennan was working at the University of Florida. The U.S. Navy had hired him to solve a problem. Ships get covered in barnacles, algae bacteria. This biofouling increases drag, wastes fuel, damages equipment. The Navy's solution? Toxic paint. But these paints were harming marine ecosystems. Brennan thought about sharks. Sharks swim fast. They resist fouling. They don't use chemicals. What's their mechanism? He obtained a shark skin sample, put it under a scanning electron microscope, and observed something extraordinary. If you run your hand along a shark from head to tail, it feels almost smooth. But the other way, it's like sandpaper. That texture comes from millions of tiny structures called dermal denticles. Each one ranges from 100 to 500 micrometers depending on the shark species. Most are about half the width of a human hair. But here's where it gets interesting. Each denticle isn't smooth. It's covered in microscopic parallel ridges. These ridges are typically 2 to 3 micrometers tall. That's approximately 50 times smaller than a human hair. The ridges are arranged in a specific pattern: ridge channel, ridge channel, ridge channel. Each channel approximately 2 micrometers wide. And Brennan realized something significant. That spacing, 2 micrometers. Most bacteria measure between 1 to 5 micrometers in diameter. The shark skin pattern appears to be at a scale that makes bacterial colonization difficult. On a smooth surface, bacteria can spread out, anchor themselves, form colonies. But on this textured pattern, the bacteria land in the channels. They struggle to spread horizontally. They have difficulty anchoring properly. Think of it like trying to build a house on the edge of a narrow ridge. You might balance temporarily, but you can't establish a stable foundation. Eventually, you lose your grip. The bacteria aren't killed. They're simply mechanically inhibited from adhering. Brennan called this the sharklet effect, and in 2005, he patented the technology. Initially, Brennan focused on marine applications. But then, someone posed a critical question. Could this prevent bacteria from colonizing medical devices? And suddenly, This wasn't about barnacles. This was about potentially saving lives. Hospital-acquired infections are among the leading causes of death in healthcare settings. Approximately 99,000 deaths per year in the United States. An estimated 1.7 to 2 million infections annually, and many originate from medical devices, catheters, ventilators, surgical instruments, the fourth lines. Let's focus on urinary catheters. According to the CDC, approximately 75% of healthcare-associated urinary tract infections are linked to catheter use. Why? Because bacteria readily colonize smooth plastic surfaces. They can attach within hours, form biofilms within days. These biofilms are extremely difficult to eliminate with antibiotics. Healthcare facilities use antimicrobial coatings, silver, copper, antibiotics embedded in materials. But there are significant limitations. First, these coatings can create selective pressure. Bacteria may develop resistance over time. Second, many coatings degrade. Within days or weeks, effectiveness diminishes. But the sharklet pattern? No chemical agents, no antibiotics, physical mechanism only, just permanent geometric texture. In 2008, Sharklet Technologies began developing medical devices incorporating shark-inspired surface patterns. The pattern is molded directly into the material during manufacturing. It's permanent. It doesn't degrade. It doesn't release substances. Clinical evaluations began in the early 2010s. And the initial results? Promising. In controlled laboratory studies, the sharklet pattern demonstrated 77 to 94% reduction in bacterial surface colonization. In optimal conditions, reduction approached 99% without using chemical agents. Let me describe real-world medical applications. Urinary catheters. Traditional catheters commonly develop biofilms within 48 hours. Infection rates? 15 to 25%. In clinical trials, sharklet-patterned catheters showed infection reduction ranging from 20 to 57% depending on study parameters. In the United States, there are approximately 5 million catheter insertions annually. A 50% reduction could potentially prevent hundreds of thousands of infections each year at an estimated $10,000 per infection treatment. The potential savings could reach billions of dollars annually. But more importantly, this could potentially save thousands of lives every year. Hospital surfaces. High-touch surfaces, bed rails, tray tables, door handles can harbor bacterial populations. Sharklet Technologies developed adhesive films with the engineered pattern. These can be applied to various surfaces. Pilot studies in healthcare facilities showed 40 to 60% reductions in surface bacterial load. Wound care products. Chronic wounds create environments favorable for infection. Wound dressings incorporating the sharklet pattern showed reduced bacterial colonization in laboratory and clinical evaluations. Across peer-reviewed studies involving thousands of subjects, sharklet-patterned surfaces demonstrated infection reductions of 20 to 77%, depending on application and study design. Importantly, these results used no antimicrobial chemicals. Here's why this approach matters increasingly. We discovered penicillin in 1928. We believed we had a permanent solution. We were mistaken. Today we face antimicrobial resistant infections that cause approximately 700,000 deaths globally each year. MRSA Clostridioides difficile, carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriaceae. The CDC classifies some strains as urgent threats. Some show resistance to nearly all available antibiotics. Mortality rates can exceed 50%. According to projections, by 2050, antimicrobial resistant infections could cause up to 10 million deaths annually, approaching the scale of cancer mortality. The fundamental issue: each time we use an antimicrobial agent, we create selective pressure. Resistant strains survive. They multiply. They spread. Developing new antibiotics requires 10 to 15 years and costs billions. Bacterial resistance can emerge in months. This is why the sharklet approach represents a different strategy. To date, bacteria have not demonstrated resistance to physical surface geometry. Evolving a different size to overcome specific surface topography would require fundamental physiological changes. This is mechanical, not chemical. Consider a healthcare environment where medical devices incorporate bacteria-resistant surface patterns. High-touch surfaces physically inhibit bacterial colonization. Wound care products reduce infection risk without antimicrobial agents. Based on current evidence, this could potentially reduce healthcare-associated infections by 30 to 50% or more. In the United States alone, this could translate to 30 to 50,000 fewer deaths annually. Globally, hundreds of thousands of lives. Sharks have been refining these adaptations for 450 million years. Human medicine? We've used antibiotics for less than a century, and we're already facing significant resistance challenges. Sharks? They developed effective defense mechanisms before the first dinosaurs appeared. The solution wasn't complex chemistry. It was physical structure. Elegant, simple, durable, effective. We didn't invent the sharklet pattern. We observed and adapted it. And here's a sobering consideration. According to the IUCN, shark populations have declined approximately 70% over the past 50 years. If sharks had become extinct before 2005, we might have lost access to this biological insight permanently. How many other potential medical innovations exist in nature right now? What treatments might be encoded in species we haven't yet studied? Each species represents millions of years of evolutionary problem solving, and we're losing that biological knowledge base. The future of medicine isn't solely pharmaceutical. It increasingly involves bio-inspired design. Sharks? They didn't patent their adaptations. They simply survived for 450 million years, with solutions we're only now beginning to understand. This is biomimicry, learning from natural solutions. Velcro inspired by plant burrs, high-speed trains by kingfisher beaks, self-cleaning surfaces by lotus leaves. Next time, how butterfly wing structures are influencing solar technology and anti-counterfeiting measures. So when you encounter a shark, consider not just a predator but a 450 million year case study in infection prevention. Because as we're learning, nature invented it first. I'm Carl. This is Nature's Patent. If you're interested in evidence-based biomimicry and natural innovations, consider subscribing. Share your thoughts. What natural mechanisms should we explore next? I review comments regularly.